All right, I get it. We have officially beaten the arcade one-up Sonic the Hedgehog cabinet to death. We've kicked it. We've stomped it. We've dunked on it. We've gotten so far up inside it, your proctologist would be jealous. We've done the whole, these are console games. We've done the whole, who asked for this thing? We've done the price, the materials, the features, all the value stuff. We have taken this thing out back like Old Yeller and even went on to review the burial plot. So tonight, I'm not here to do another 2-hour Sonic Cab Bad episode because that's not the problem. The problem is not that there aren't arcade games on it. The core problem is not the form factor. The core problem is not the price. The core problem is something way more toxic, something way more damaging long term. That Sonic Cab, that's just the symptom. The disease is the broken promises created by a representative of the company. Not even a PR person, not even a PR statement. No, this is the worst kind. The official account that comes into the community spaces and starts acting like it's part of the community. You know what I'm talking about. Hey guys, we're back. We're in your chats. We know you. We hear you. Oh yeah, big toy fair. Exciting, excited. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Trust us. They did the full hype tour. They went into all the places where the most passionate, most informed, most emotionally invested part of this hobby lives. The live shows, the chats, the groups. And they started building this up like, okay, this is gonna be for you. This is gonna be for the community. And here's the part people don't want to admit out loud. When an official account shows up and talks like an insider, talks like they know the scene, know the creators, know the inside jokes, it doesn't feel like marketing. It feels like they're trying to build relationships. And that is where companies get stupid. Because once you cross that line, you're not selling products anymore. You're selling trust. You're selling, hey, we get you. We're listening. We're here. And when you do that, you're creating expectations, whether you mean to or not. And then Toy Fair hits, and the big reveal is another out-of-touch disappointment. And after that buildup, it lands just like you'd expect, like a bait and switch, because it's not what the official account promised. It's the difference between here's a product announcement from a company and here's your friend hyping you up all week for something completely insane, only then to be showed a new paperclip he found. And then everybody's like, bro, why are you so mad? Don't like it, don't buy it. No, people are mad because they feel played. Because it wasn't just a product reveal, it was a trust reveal. And that trust failed. So here's the rule. If you're gonna act like you're in the community, you better understand the community. If you're gonna tease like you've got something for the diehards, you better not come out with something that screams mass market appeal after spending weeks bathing in enthusiast spaces. Because now you've trained the community to believe that the official account is performative, that these teases are manipulations, that your engagement is simply attention seeking, and that the real story won't come from a so-called official account. And congrats, this is how you turn a hobby into factions. And that's what everybody actually reacted to. Not Sonic. The broken promises from a so-called representative of the company. The "you made us think you were listening" part. And now, because the universe loves repeating its dumbest lessons, Xbox leadership looks like it's about to step on that same rake. because we're watching this new wave of corporate social engagement where new CEO is out here doing the whole let's jump in the replies, let's banter, let's debate, let's talk like we're a regular community account. And again, this isn't about don't talk to customers. It's about how you talk to customers. Because social media doesn't reward leadership, it rewards reaction, it rewards the screenshot, it rewards the clapback, it rewards the moment. And you don't get to be just a person when you're the face of a brand. You can't say, I'm just here hanging out with the boys, and then be shocked when people treat you like a friend and then punish you like an enemy when they don't get what they want. That's the parasocial trap. You create closeness for attention, hype, and goodwill, and then you act surprised when expectations explode. And shout out to RGT85. He called this out earlier this week. The CEO in the reply nonsense is dangerous for Xbox, which is already struggling. Because the minute you make the brand feel like a person, you've created a target and you've created relationship debt. Eventually, that bill comes due. So tonight's show isn't Sonic Cab bad. Tonight's show is brands are not your friends. And when brands cosplay your friends, when they insert official voices into community spaces like their peers, they don't build loyalty. They build entitlement, resentment, and civil war. And we've already seen this movie in the home arcade scene. We know exactly how it ends. So let's talk about what companies should do, what healthy community engagement looks like, and why official accounts doing the hype tour is a short-term sugar high that wrecks trust long-term. All right, now let's go say hi to the chat. All right, all right, all right. So longer than normal opening there. So appreciate everybody hanging out. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to everyone who arrived early. And don't forget, smash that like button, hit the subscribe, ring the bell. You know what to do. But first out of the gate, Josh was here and he saw John D. Mystery Encoder and wanted to know who the chick was in the chat. So that's not Mystery Encoder, but it is funny. It is a certain mystery official account. We have Sean here. Thanks for dropping by. Says this seems a little dark, and he is liking it. John Fritz is here saying good evening to everybody. There is JJ, and we have Gamer Fridge taking his guesses at who our mystery Arcade One Up official is. Got Joe Cade in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Joe Cade was here last week. In case you missed it, go check out that live stream. We have the Corner Cade, and he is going somewhere. Just never tells anybody where. We've got the bad guy in the house who says this is the most watched show on Thursday, and it's statistically proven. We have Nate, who seems to be tired. And thank you. We have the very mature, and thankfully he can level his maturity on us. Angry Birds Movie 4 says, do we really need live streams to tell 40-year-old men not to have parasocial relationships with toy companies? That is the opposite, but similar, right? We're talking about the toy companies not trying to have those parasocial relationships with the community. Brooklyn is in the house. We got the moderator of all moderators, Jason Little Alien. Israel is here, says hello to everyone. We got the infamous Steve Sale. Hope you are having a great week, my friend. Science Spirits is here. Is this stream where James tells us he's not really a friend? 19K Fox is in the house. Mystery Encoder is here and says, what the F did he do wrong? Why was I on the cover? Well, apparently AI thinks you are Arcade One Up official or something. Unchained is here. Appreciate the shout out on the topics. Jay Pace says we're getting the Spy Hunter made over at the Arcade Insider Show with Arcade One Up Official taking notes in the chat. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. MG is here, so this is where you're all hiding. Video Game Vegas. Shout out to Video Game Vegas, who found the most interesting way to share his thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog, and that is, of course, talking about cleaning his filter in his washer and dryer. Definitely recommend going to check that out. Thanks for dropping by. We've got lots of back and forth between Mystery Encoder and MG. Trying to catch up here in the couch. Or in the chat, if I could talk. Great monologue, James, other than the obligatory Sonic cat clobbering. Show Gecko is here. Thanks for dropping by. JJ says, that's what I call full of piss and vinegar. You nailed it. It gets so tired to be played the same the way some vendors try to do. And Brooklyn is here, and Gamer Fridge is here again. Was there really 4 Angry Birds movies? I don't believe so, MG. I think there was only maybe 2, but who knows? Maybe they're in the hopper and we just don't know it, or maybe they were all straight to video. But I do appreciate everybody joining today. We have some quick news to get through, which most of you have probably seen by now, unless you're living in a hole in the ground. But first off, obviously, big shout out to our friends at Wonderland Amusements. Peter, Jerry, Gary, and all the gang. They have shipped their Wonderland pinballs. The Alice Goes to Wonderland is shipping for all those Kickstarter pre-order customers. So again, big shout out, delivering what everybody said couldn't be done. So I'm really excited to see some of the early reviews come out. I know Fat Hog has shared some videos of the playfield post shipping, and it all came intact, no damage on his. So really cool to see that video. And I know Mystery Encoder is anxiously awaiting his shipping, but he will get his 3D, or are they 3D? Whatever, the sculpted replacement parts. At least he knows those are coming. Science Spirits, this says the pinball machine is super easy, barely an inconvenience to set up. A child could do it. So very cool. Again, big shout out to those guys. It's huge to see this actually come to fruition, to start hitting customers' homes. If you are excited by this and you didn't pre-order one, there is plenty of time to get one. You can purchase directly on Wonderland, or they have popped up on eBay through Spreetail for a couple $100 less. I don't know if they charge shipping on that or not, but definitely check that out if you are having some FOMO. For me personally, I'm waiting for this one to really see one, how gameplay and reviews go on Alice in Wonderland, and then I really want to see what TMNT looks like before I am all in. But I really do love to see that this company, this amalgam of a bunch of home arcade alumni, have come together to create this company, and I'm really excited to see what they're doing. Bill's Retro Gaming Show has popped in. Nice to see you. All right, next up is the biggest announcement of the day, in my opinion, and that is we have a release date for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Dragon Pearl of Destruction. Of course, the best-looking Masters of the Universe video game ever created. This thing looks awesome. It will definitely become a project cab for me. I will be making a custom arcade for this one, just because it needs to be played on an arcade and it looks so cool. Cannot wait. But speaking of games that should be cabs, that also got announced this week, that have been all over the home arcade channels on YouTube. That's right, we're talking Maximum Marvel Collection, which, you'd think they'd have more pictures here than just this silly logo. But of course, we all know what it is. It features the X-Men, Konami X-Men arcade with full 6 players, and it's going to be available on Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Steam, along with other arcade games and console games with the X-Men and Marvel brand. So super cool. And again, we need our favorite custom arcade designer who delivers what nobody else will. Of course, talking about G.I. Joe Gaming, to start plotting out a 6-player X-Men that we can throw Steam on a mini PC and play 6-player online with the community. We need this now, Joel. So I hope you bring it to us. But again, you guys have probably all seen this, so I'm not going to beat it with a dead horse, or beat it with a dead horse, or beat it like a dead horse. there you go. Brooklyn says limited run games is killing it this year. They absolutely are. Another release that they just closed the pre-orders on, which has been out for a while in digital, is the Capcom Arcade Stadium Collection. Limited run just ended the pre-orders on the physical edition of that, which comes with 30 of Capcom's classic arcade games. So I went ahead and picked that one up in physical. Excited about getting that. But yeah, they are just bringing out all the stops to start 2026 with all these arcade physical editions, and in this case, and with He-Man, the digital editions. If I can talk, I can't talk. $60, they can keep it. MG says. If that is what it's cost, that's quite a bit. So hopefully they deliver a lot of value for that $60. But I am betting that the collector's editions for these are going to be sweet. That's all I'll say. There's going to probably be some really cool toys and or statues and or whatever in these collector's editions. MG James learned from the best. Okay. The Science Spirit says he is not kidding. He would rather play He-Man than GTA 6. And you are not alone. Brooklyn is 100% going to get the physical, but yeah, who wants to wait for the physical? These are going to be, both of these, in my opinion, Masters of the Universe and Maximum Collection are, I feel, going to be ones I'm going to end up buying multiple times, both digital and physical. And Jason also is interested in one or both of these. So definitely looking cool. Can't wait to see where these go, what else gets announced in the Maximum Marvel collection, especially because they've only teased, I think, part of the games list at this point. So definitely interested to see if more get added as we go on. Video Game Vegas says it's limited run. Look for Maximum's Collector's Edition coming sometime in 2029. You are not wrong. That's why I'm going to end up buying it twice. Got to get the digital to play and the pre-order on the collector edition to wait for eternity for it to show up. So let's talk about kind of what brought us all here today. And really, like I said, I shouted out in the monologue RGT85 because it really was his comments. And I'll share those with you here in a bit in case you didn't see it. But it all spurned from this fallout from Xbox. We all know at this point, it was leaked early over the weekend, talked about all day Monday, that Xbox, the CEO, Phil Spencer, is out. Of course, it was announced as a retirement, but we know, typically when a CEO of his particular age bracket retires, generally it means you are let go. In addition, of course, Sarah Bond was let go. Other people moved up, including, and I'm going to mess her name up. Let me get it right here. Asha Sharma, who was in their AI division, is now head of gaming at Microsoft. And, she has a lot of news to fill. I'm not going to really go into this article. You guys can read this article if you want. I just pulled it up to kind of point out the departure of the CEO and the new CEO stepping in, because that's where we get into the encouraging a parasocial relationship which you guys know has scarred this community up and down. And so we'll dive into that in a bit. But if you are interested in reading this article, I definitely recommend checking it out. It features comments made by one of the original founders, creators of the Xbox. He hasn't been with Microsoft in a long time, but he's basically opining that this is the end of Xbox, that it's clear Microsoft is trying to wind it down. May or may not have inside info. He's been gone a long time, and it's just his opinion, but it is an interesting opinion just the same. So before we do that, I need to actually share this so you can hear it a little bit. Let's see if I can share this the right way, live sharing where I can't. Here we go. All right, shout out to RGT85, and hopefully you guys can hear this. If not, you don't really need to hear it, but it is worth hearing. Let's take a look.
But we have this individual who, to be fair, could end up doing a great job. You know, I don't think it's fair to say that they are completely doomed. But commingling with the peanut gallery, there's a reason why people don't do this, why companies don't do this. I don't believe you. In fact, I think your account is an AI. Beep, boop, beep, boop. Like, what? Why would you... Why? Do you know how much dumb shit people say to me on Twitter every day? They call me autistic. They call me gay. They call me the R word, which you can't say on YouTube anymore. They call me terrible names and stuff like that. I don't react to any of these. Like, once in a while, if I'm bored, I'll be like, hey, you a bitch. But like, I don't react to these people. It's the peanut gallery. I'm not taking advice from people who don't know anything about the work that I do and how YouTube works and how social media work to better me and better my brand and better my career. I'm good over here. I'm Gucci. If you're not living as good as me, why would I listen to advice from you? If you haven't done what I've been able to do, why would I listen to advice from you? Like, sure, you can listen to it, but if you take it to heart, it's like, what's the point? What's the point? What does Lord No Face know about like Xbox and stuff? What is Phoebe? Oh, it's Phoebe. Okay, you know, Phoebe, Mr. Like, what are we? Oh, and he follows me. I'm sorry, Mr. Evil A. But like, you can understand that, Mr. Evil A. You're not, you know, you're a fan at the end of the day. You're a consumer at the end of the day. You want the best for Xbox. But why is the CEO, the head honcho, talking to people?
Yeah, so that, you know, that I just think he nails it there, right? So you know, hopefully the sound wasn't totally missing. That sucks. But yeah, so fresh out of jail, RGT drops this video. Definitely recommend checking it out. But he's ranting on this Xbox CEO, talking to all these random people on Twitter and responding to ridiculous comments with ridiculous sayings. And it's like, what is she doing, right? Does she think this is helping the brand? Does she think this is what will move Xbox forward? And it's only going to paint a target on her back and make a mockery of Xbox. And we've seen this kind of crap happen in home arcade. I mean, those who have been here for a long time, longer than I have been here, have seen the company in question, Arcade 1-Up, the original, the OG Arcade 1-Up, encourage and create these parasocial relationships going back to their early days. And of course, you guys know who I'm talking about, who was at the center of these kinds of things. And, you know, people had a lot of respect for him. He worked at a lot of big companies and game developers that made all kinds of arcade games. And so he had a lot of connections and things, but he played into that parasocial relationship and lapped it up, right? And ended up creating divisions in home arcade where you know, people talk about this hobby especially on YouTube, being super toxic, of people either super negative about stuff or super positive about stuff. You're either a shill or a hater. Nobody is allowed to have their own opinions for some reason. And it all comes back to the brand, the face of the company, working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to manipulate, if it lack of a better word. I'm not saying they're negative intentions, but all of these intentions were designed with one thing, right? Making sales, moving the business forward. And it created a bunch of people that felt like have nots and haves over the years, right? You guys have all seen these super bitter channels that still exist that once felt like they were in the in club, right? That they were in the inside, right? And they felt like, hey, we know this company, they know us, this is great. And as they started getting excluded, they got super bitter. Some of them left the entire home arcade scene altogether, latched on to other hobbies, which is great. It's good people change hobbies. Not everybody wants to be interested in the same thing all the time. But some of them left not because they weren't interested anymore, but because they felt burned or disconnected from really the big brand that kind of was at the center of the home arcade hobby and creating what it was. And some of them have stuck around only to act as trolls to the other people that were kind of viewed as the real inside with these companies, who had the blessings of the companies per se, right? You guys know the big channels. They're still the big channels today. But people that were once friends with those people are now bitter enemies because of that parasocial relationship that the people at this company created. And you guys, I found it an really interesting article that I wanted to share. Let me stop sharing this, add this back up here. I'm not going to read you the whole article. I know you guys can read, but I did find some part of it was very apropos. And of course, this is why angry anti-fans turn on the influencers they once loved, right? And so you can kind of swap influencers, not flop them, swap out influencers and say companies. It's all the same thing. This goes back to these relationships in social media. And I found it really interesting. Let's see. Okay, so we almost never hear about arguably a more dedicated group. They're anti-fans. These are the people who unite around a shared hatred of a particular social media stars or companies. They post on sites, and I'm sure you guys can't think of anybody in this space that hates particular social media stars and dedicates their entire channels to them. But I want you to listen to how these people are described and tell me if you recognize any of these people. They post on sites like Tattle Life Guru, Gossip, Reddit's Blog Snark, which hosts many forums where anti-fans post biting criticism of influencers' appearance, weight, and lifestyle, calling them bad mothers or suggesting their partners have cheated. This rampant cruelty occasionally slips into territory that is actively dangerous, with posters doxing influencers and their families through chilling, crafty sleuthing. Like, seriously. This says when they all have in common. Okay, so it says, why do people post this? And it says what they all have in common is a history of once loving the influencers they now appear to hate. Does this sound like any of the people we know in this community? A typical refrain you'll see goes something like, I used to live for her post, but now she's boring, out of touch, ungrateful to her fans. This is often followed by a scathing comment on the influencer's work ethic or parenting style, or speculation about whether they have had liposuction. And so, why spend so much time and energy writing about a person who bores you or simply drives you nuts? And of course, there's a study. It says their findings were startling. Fans seem to have turned on influencers precisely because of the closeness they once felt. In their posts, anti-fans spoke of feeling neglected and excluded from influencers' lives. Those influencers chose to increase privacy measures or stopped responding to comments. In some cases, and again, I'm going to say, does this sound like any of the people in this community? In some cases, these anti fans would pour over the lives of influencers they felt had withdrawn from their followers, speculating about what might have happened behind closed doors, filling in what researchers called narrative gaps or conspiracy theories or whatever you want to call them in their own whacked out minds with informations they had triangulated or guessed. Many anti-fans even felt exploited by their favorite influencers as if their dedication and adoration was being milked for brand deals or used to fund increasingly flashy lifestyles. It's just this is the kind of shit that happens when companies do this, and it just is encouraged even more. Obviously, it says they're inherently parasocial. Um, Underpinning many of the posts on anti-fan sites is stark delusions. The fans were never at any point friends with the influencers or the companies in question, nor did they have close relationships for which they could be subsequently excluded. It just goes on and on. And the sticky truth is that parasocial relationships are, as anti fans have noted, lucrative when cultivated successfully. So, why did the old Arcade One Up and the people at Arcade One Up encourage this? Because they can make money at it, right? If they can convince you they're your buddy, they're your friend, they're going to keep you on the hook. They're going to keep you buying their products, and more importantly, buying stuff when you're super disappointed in what they're coming out with. Um, the negative ramifications of this feigned intimacy are revealing themselves too much more difficult for people to negotiate than we may have assumed. But we should also understand that influencers know and have known, or read companies, the downsides of fueling this delusion. It may be double-edged sword, but it would be naive to think that feigning this intimacy wasn't intentional or indeed overwhelmingly advantageous. So, yeah, I mean, the whole point of that really is to kind of point out the funny, like, anti-fans in this community, but they're driven by those parasocial relationships that were created by Arcade One Up. That when that person at the center of that, back in the day, back in the founding of this, you know, shone a light on people, it was easy for people to be like, "Oh my god, this company appreciates what I'm doing. They want to include me and stuff. This is great." When you're an influencer, or when they drop in the chat and you get to have a one-on-one conversation with the people, or not one-on-one, one on 50, 100, 200, with the people in chats, you get you feel like, wow, they're actually listening to me. They really care and all this stuff. And as we see, it shifts, right? Like when they change their view and say, well, we're going to now focus on other people, it creates bitterness, it creates all this psychological nonsense that creates these factions that still exist in home arcade. So when the new Arcade One Up official, whoever they may be, and I know there's lots of theories, um, comes in and starts speaking insider jokes, but yet won't say who they are. Right? It feels like somebody that's been around the community for a very long time in order to know some of these inside jokes. And maybe they haven't. Maybe this truly is some guy at Basic Fun that just did a ton of research, watched all the channels, leading up to them taking over some of the social media and learned some of the inside jokes so they could slide it. Possibly. I don't want to level any accusations. So it's possible. Maybe I'm completely wrong on some of that stuff. And this person really did do their research. But then I'd say if they really did their research, they would kind of know that when they came in and did this whole buildup around what they were going to announce at Toy Fair and how much all of us in these communities were going to be so super excited about it, they would have kind of known that that was going to fall flat. So it's almost like Arcade One Up Official, to be fair, is multiple people. I think there are certain people that are interacting in the chats, and there are certain people that are interacting outside the chats, like maybe just sharing shorts or going on Instagram and sharing reels. In fact, I know or have a good idea that one of the guys that was out at Toy Fair who was hanging out with Cyrus, I'm not going to, you know, reveal who that is or anything for their privacy's sake, but that marketing guy, I believe, has access to their Instagram account. I will note that the Instagram account for Arcade One Up Official acts completely different than some of the other accounts, but maybe that's the same person. I don't know. And I'm sure that person is absolutely trying to do their best to market for Basic Fun, to market for Arcade One Up, has nothing but the best intentions. I'm not trying to imply they don't. I'm trying to let them know the history of what's happened in this space if they're not aware of that, and how, you know, we want their engagement, but we don't want it the way that it has been, and certainly not kind of the way we saw it leading up to Toy Fair. You know, don't pretend to be everybody's friends. Don't pretend you're listening and writing down all the great ideas, only to know for a fact you're really not going to deliver most of that stuff, if any of it. Instead, do it like other companies do. Think about the companies that do these engagements right. I can list a ton. We could talk about Quarter Arcades, who engages the community through interviews. They'll go on a show and they'll do an interview. They'll talk about their product. They'll share what's coming up. They'll make posts on their Facebook page, on their Instagram page, on their websites to talk about and market their product. They engage social media in a responsible way. How about Zen Studios? Right? Zen runs their own show, and they do it themselves. They don't jump into other shows and jump in the chats and try to build hype for their products. They go out, they do a big centralized show of their own where people come to them, they talk about what they have, what they're coming out with, and they do it that way. They are guests on other podcasts and other people's show to talk about their products that way. They do it in a responsible, professional way because they understand that the relationship between the community and the company is a business one, not a friendship one. And my advice is to Arcade One Up is we want you to stay engaged. We want you to actually listen and not make empty promises. So my advice to you would be to think about what is a professional way to communicate with the home arcade community, and what is one that is not going to work out too well for you. Like if you're who I think you are, you know Cyrus, you've talked to Cyrus. Cyrus tried to do this after John D left Arcade One Up and didn't go over well. He became the target because of what the foundation was that was laid before him, and he wasn't prepared for that. You, even though you're a Basic Fun and that was a different company, you're stepping into the same history. You need to understand that, or what happened after Toy Fair is going to continue to repeat it. Because if you're going, as I saw somebody posted in the chat, if you're going on to shows and you're telling people, "Oh, Spy Hunter's coming," or "Spy Hunter, we hear you, Spy Hunter," and you can't deliver a Spy Hunter, oh boy, you're just going to be just right down the wrong path. You know, talk about what you do have, talk about what you can talk about. Don't give people false hope that in this community. It has happened far too long, far too many times. We've heard all about the great things are coming, only to find out it's more Pac-Man or more things people didn't even want. Um, it's just been disappointment, right? So even when something lands that people do want, like shout out to Basic Fun and the WrestleFest, the first dip into WrestleFest with the Ultra was a big disappointment for people. We missed the mark a lot. The Supreme seems to be landing a lot better. I know they took their time to go back and hopefully fix a lot of the drawbacks were with the original. So that's positive. That's the right thing to do. So keep engaging, do it from a professional standpoint. Don't try to be our friends. Like, as much as we may like it, it's going to hurt you in the long run. It's a road to nowhere. Uh, Jay Pace says, we were just engaging Arcade One Up official on Arcade's Inter show. She seemed legit and earnest in their attempts to engage. While it doesn't come off as perfect, I sincerely appreciate them. Yeah, we all appreciated them engaging. But remember, they were the ones hyping up how big Toy Fair was going to be. Oh, you're going to be excited. You're going to love it. You can't straddle the road of acting like you know this community, that you really know what they want and you're really listening, and launch something like that and expect it not to land with a thud. But again, I'm not trying to discourage Arcade One Up from communicating. I'm trying to get them to communicate in a professional manner. Something it seems a lot of companies are allergic to right now for some reason. You've got Iconic Arcade, who won't send notices to their customers. They post them on Facebook where like nobody really goes, or they hope somebody sees it on Arcade Insiders or some random other YouTube channel post. Like, communicate with your customers. It is sad. I saw that just like 2 days ago, their pre-order customers got the notification that Iconic has shipped from the warehouse and is sitting out in the shipyard. Like, we all knew that like 2 or 3 weeks ago because they posted it on Facebook. But shouldn't the customers have been the first to know? Like, why is this so hard? Why is your website still showing a prototype cab that was scrapped a long time ago? Like, I get you may not want to pay somebody to do a bunch of graphic design work, but you have pictures of the cab. Take all that other stuff off and just put a picture of the cab on there and say coming soon. I mean, you even have professional photos you had taken of the cab with your toys. Put it on there. Like, how hard is this? Communicate like professionals. These companies, you're not our friends, and we know you're not our friends. So stop pretending to be and stop building up false hope in people, because as Mike's repeated, the hopium is running low. We're tired of this manipulative shit. And we love that you're engaging. We want to give you a fair shake. You're a new company, new people. And you instead of taking Basic Fun, you chose to take the Arcade One Up brand, which has a history behind it. And so you've inherited that history. And so you just got to be very careful about what you're saying. So if you're going to engage, just stop the charades, be honest about the engagement. Don't overhype things. Talk about what you can talk about, make promises you can promise, and don't fool people. And I know you didn't do it intentionally, but you've got to know that that kind of relationship is not smart for your business. And yes, Jason NSS says, we hear you, Robotron is coming. Uh, Flipping through here, catching up in the chat a little bit. Fourth Horseman says, I think the community is starting to realize that it isn't going to grow, and it's probably a dying fad for home arcade machines. 1 to 2 cabs every 3 years. Fourth Horseman, I don't think you're entirely wrong. And I think it's sad that it's bad timing for these companies, whether it's Iconic Arcade. I really, like I said, I love that Alpha 2. I hope they hit a giant home run with that. I hope when that gets in homes, everything John D has worked for the past 3 years is all that and more, and it's a huge success. Because I still think it looks amazing. and has a ton of potential, you know, with the promises of the great online play. If you didn't see Moat's video of about the iconic, definitely check it out. As somebody who is kind of the king of these fighting game tournaments in this space, he comes at it from a different view than everybody else. And he mentioned something that I've also thought is like critically missing from arcade one-ups, which is an easy way to stream them, because I think that in and of itself will encourage a different kind of streamer, right? Like the fact that these aren't easy to stream, you have to like do the PD7 way, put up a camera in front of them, or you have to spend a bunch of money and get an LVDS to HDMI converter board. Hope you don't break your LVDS cable while you're messing around with all that. Um, it's a pain in the ass. But if you actually have the HDMI out where you can just split it or run it straight to your computer, now you have good quality streaming that I think you could get, Twitch people playing a lot of, especially with the online fighting competitions. And you'd see really, first class players streaming these things 24/7. And not to mention the tournament side of it, just absolutely huge. So I hope it's a home run. I really do. I hope they deliver everything that's promised, and we'll look at all this time with the delays and the lack of communication as just bumps in the road, and they'll start running like a well-oiled machine. Like I hope it's just growing pains, and that's all it is, and we're all good. But when I say like Fourth Horseman here, I really feel like the problem with home arcade isn't these companies right now. It's just simply the state of the world. Prices are going up, components are harder to get. You've got the tariff shit that up and down, left and right. You never know what's going to happen, which makes doing business incredibly difficult. How do you price something when you don't know what the price is going to be when you actually go to ship it? Then you got the Ramageddon. Now that's spilling into hard drive issues where Western Digital's announced they have already sold out for the entire 2026 of all their hard drives. So even those guys that make the drives are going to be, want to sell you the 26 terabyte drives or 2 terabyte drives. They're going to be struggling. They're going to have to go to used, beat up drives in order to keep producing those, because the hard drive companies are now running out of stuff. So it's becoming a challenge, and prices are going up. And the one thing with Arcade One Up Official that I found strange is how they contradict what the marketing guy at Toy Fair said. Now, I know I have a pretty good idea that marketing guy also has access to some of their socials, but he told multiple people that Sonic was $7.99. Told n- news outlets, told YouTubers and other influencers that were there, like different people at different times. He quoted that price, and then Arcade One Up Official is in the chat saying something different. He told Gizmodo that most of the Arcade One Up employees were retained, and Arcade One Up officials saying no, only a few. So it's weird that there's a discrepancy there, but that can happen when there's multiple people running an account or have access to account, which I think is likely the case myself. But again, it's this shadowy thing that's strange anyway. But so let's assume the MSRP is $7.89, because that's what the official marketing guy for Basic Fun said all weekend to multiple people. And there's been nothing official saying anything other than that. So I'm going to assume $7.99 is the manufacturer suggested retail price. I think we've talked about this before, which probably means it'll be for sale around $7.49 if we take the past as precedent, because last Toy Fair they talked about the Supremes being $6.99, and when they finally shipped a couple months ago or a month or so ago to Sam's Club, they were $6.49, so $50 discount. So I think you'll probably see around the same thing in store. I think it'll be closer to $7.50 or $700, but even then, that's a lot of dough. Iconic Arcade, we know that when that launched, they said the price was $6.99 if I remember right, or maybe it was $7.99 discounted to $6.99, and then they gave the deal. So even then, like a year and a half ago, they were saying, the regular price is going to be closer to $800. And so it's probably going to be even more than that now, especially given the discounting they had to do for some of the pre-orders. Wonderland, under $1,000 if you got them in the pre-order and can pick it up real quick on the extras left over from the pre-order, but then it's up to $1,200. So as you start looking at these new products, they're getting way more expensive. Basic Funds, just the Ultra, $599, and they've stripped out the coin doors, they've stripped out the speaker grills. They've delivered a cheaper PCB that's not as capable. Like they've cut back on a lot, and they're still selling it for $600, $100 increase with less games, cheaper components, a better built cab. So you got to give them that. That it's not all bad. Like they've done good stuff. It's just a sign of the economy. As these go up, again, this isn't a criticism. I don't think they have a choice. As the price of these things go up, it's going to be harder for more and more people to justify buying it. At the same time, people are paying more for food. That there hasn't been any, relief in the cost of beef or anything else. That stuff continues to climb, which means people have less and less disposable income. We all know, like, wages as a whole in the United States have been stagnant. Like, all of these things are bad news for companies selling something that costs just under $1,000 or just over $1,000. So that in and of itself is a barrier to the health of the home arcade market. And Basic Fun and Iconic and all these companies, their big downfall may just be bad timing. you know, it really is. And that's the disappointment of, in my mind, the Sonic cab. And that's the disappointment in my mind of building up the false hope that Arcade One Up Official did, is you're only going to get so many swings at this. And if we need them to be a success, if you're into this kind of product in this space. And if they don't have success, how long before they just throw their hands up and say, yeah, we tried it, it just doesn't work? You're talking about Basic Fun, a company that just got out of bankruptcy. That doesn't bode well long term. I hate to say it. You've made bad decisions, you went bankrupt, and what makes us think you're suddenly making even better decisions? That's not to diss them. It's like, you have to show us. And that's their first thing out of the gate is, oh, you guys are gonna love this. Sorry, it's Sonic for consoles. Like, come on. And I just, there's not enough runway for these guys to make mistakes. So, I already obviously did a message on that, an open letter to them, which I sincerely hope they listen to. And I keep seeing this, B. Kirby, but nobody officially has ever said that. What the officials have said, it's in print, it's on video, is $7.99. So until they actually say that, not going to talk like it's a fact that it's $6.49 to $6.99, because that's just wishful thinking, quite frankly. Like, until there is public statement that that's the price, and not the public statements they've made of $7.99, I wouldn't go around throwing that number out there. But yeah, I totally agree with you there. Those days are gone because prices continue to rise. And so ask yourself, if this hobby is sustainable, why Arcade One Up couldn't make a go of it, why they had to sell out. And I know people will talk about the big bad bets. We've all talked about that stuff. But if Pac-Man was a home run, if Pac-Man was the be-all, end-all of making you money, Arcade One Up, over the last 3 years, where they sold basically nothing but Pac-Man and NBA Jams, would have enough money coming in to survive. The problem is Pac-Man is not the cash cow that it once was. They've saturated the market. It's not the golden ticket to home arcade success. And that's a problem, which means the stuff you've got to sell has to be a success. And even if Sonic was Sega pushing it, you're the company. It's your goddamn money. Like, you may want Sega licenses really bad to make some really exciting cabs. But if you know they're going to have you put out an $800 Supreme that is nothing but console games and you're really not going to make money at it, it's on you to tell them no and walk away if you have to. Not, yeah, we'll sell it. We'll eat 13,000 units of this that won't sell in hopes that you'll let us make something else. I'll just point at Arcade One Up. Sega let them make a couple cabinets. I would argue those cabinets were probably pretty successful. Did they let them keep making it? That's all I'll say. But yeah, uh, yeah. So if B Kirby says it's the price, I'm with him. We have the same sources. Just saying, and I'm not saying B Kirby's wrong, but if it's not public, it's not public. And you know, the guys at Spreetail can say whatever they want. John D can say whatever he wants. Like, until it's public, until it's official, it's not official. And so I wouldn't go around promising people certain price points until it is a done deal. Again, it is 649 right now. But you're saying he misspoke. So he misspoke to multiple people, not only on multiple different things. That's not misspeaking. It was picked up by multiple outlets who did direct interviews with the guy, and we all know who the guy is. And you know, it's 649 right now because that's right now, not a year from now, right? Sonic is coming out Q4, not today. So they're putting out a price at Toy Fair where they're trying to land deals with those companies. That's what Toy Fair is. Toy Fair is not there to market to consumers. Toy Fair was there for basic fun to market to the retailers, to get the retail buyers to buy the Sonic cab, to put it in their club stores. And if they're quoting at Toy Fair $7.99 to those companies, and that's not the right price, that's a whole bigger screw up. So I don't really think that's the case. I think that's the MSRP, as I've said before, that's likely what they were rolling with, is that's our suggested price, knowing full well the club stores are going to want a discount off of that. But, you know, you can't compare a today price to a tomorrow price. That's just not the way things are right now, unfortunately. Especially a cab that, as they like to keep pointing out, is a prototype. It's not the final design. We don't know what else is going into it. We don't know what more games or less games might be added to it. There's so many components they haven't even thought through yet to have any kind of true final price, let alone like be able to project this far out. They're doing the best they can. And console fanboy, did you get Resident Evil 9? I did get Resident Evil 9. I probably will not be streaming it. Resident Evil is one of my most favorite games, so I plan to just dive into that tomorrow and be lost all weekend. I'm definitely not angry. I'm not angry at B Kirby. I just keep at all. Like, I know B Kirby has inside people. I know that the arcade insiders have been running around throwing prices out, and they could all be 100% right. I'm not saying they're wrong. What I'm saying is we only have public information that says $7.99, and that's from somebody who actually directly works for Basic Fun. So until I see somebody else from Basic Fun says, I'm an employee of Basic Fun, and this is what we're charging or will be charging, then that is what you have to go with. Anything else is just speculation, as some people like to say. So I do appreciate B Kirby, and I know he has inside information, and that's my take on it. Like, I am not going to quote anything other than $7.99 because that is what they said. And they didn't say it once, they said it multiple times. So until they change that and come out and officially say that, then yeah, it is what it is. And it does look like Brooklyn will be streaming Resident Evil 9, so that'll be fun if you want to watch that. The reviews are off the charts. I'm hearing already Game of the Year talk, which will be awesome. Because MG locking in the 649. But But yeah, so the point of this wasn't to talk about the price of stupid Sonic, which to me won't sell at even $5.99, but that's a different thing. Um, it was to talk about the unhealthy relationships that these companies are brewing and stirring up, as you can see. So that's really all I have for tonight. I do appreciate every single one of you for being here. And Moat is asking about the Switch version. I've heard that is also a very good port. I'll still be doing PS5 myself, but I've heard it is an actual really good port. So that'll be interesting. But I'm excited for that. Resident Evil, tomorrow, tonight, it's going to be awesome. And again, big shout out to B Kirby. Appreciate the gifting 10 memberships. Really do appreciate it. I know B Kirby is a passionate guy about this stuff, and as we all are, and it's fun to hear all the different opinions about stuff. And like I said, I want Basic Fun to be a huge success because I want them to make the cabs I want. I want them to make the cabs you want, even if that cab's Robotron. I don't know how Robotron became so popular. Is it all Stock Jock and Michael B? I don't know. But I want the cab that they were talking about. I want a Spy Hunter. I want a whole bunch of stuff. But um, you know, love the Double Dragon. Hope that comes out. There's so many things that are going to be awesome, man. And got to have the He-Man. Who's pissed that He-Man is co-op only? Uh, it's it's are you I assume you're saying He-Man when you wrote H-Man, but it's a beat 'em up. I don't think it's a fighter, though I can see why being Skeletor would be fun, but now you're giving him an idea for the next game, right? Do a um, a He-Man fighter. That would be actually a ton of fun. Let's get Capcom on that. Moat, I know you know a guy. Go get Capcom to secure the Motu license and get us a Motu versus Capcom cab. That would be awesome. It's because they keep sending Michael B. That is a large part of Basic Fun's problems. They should just stop that. Just kidding. Yeah, He-Man. Man, as long as it's got online play and we can all like jump in, it's going to be awesome. He-Man isn't going to be. No, MG, it's not. I thought you just said earlier it was $60 or something. Woohoo, my name got mentioned as part of James' tirade. Appreciate that, Stock Jock. So, like I said, appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate Arcade One Up Official for engaging. Just stay away from the inside jokes, stay away from, trying to create parasocial relationships. You're the company. We want to hear from you. We want to hear the good stuff. You can hear from us just by watching all these shows. That's what these shows do, is talk about all this stuff. You don't really need to be, I don't know. Like I said, you just got yourself in trouble. I'm just trying to keep you from doing it again. Because I really do think a large part of the reaction to Sonic wasn't, oh God.
My name got mentioned as part of James.
I always leave OBS open. I really hope that, what I was saying is we don't want you to have to repeat that, because I really do believe that most of the vitriol with Sonic was about the weeks leading up to it and all the hype for it. Because overall, it would have just been they're doing Sonic. Like I said in my one open letter, like if you had dropped two next to each other, if you had said, here's Afterburner, or here's Golden Axe, or here's Outrun, or here's Crazy Taxi, or here's Daytona, or here's one of a million other Sega games we'd all be excited for, and here's Sonic, and we're leading off with Sonic, no problems, right? You would not have heard a negative thing about from anybody, because people would have looked at that other cab, and even if it's pending licensor approval may never come, there was something to latch on to that the home arcade hobbyist would have loved. And then Sonic would have been, and they're doing Sonic. That's interesting. It's not for me, but I hope it for sale. Instead, it was, You guys are going to love this. It's so exciting. It's going to be so great. We can't sleep. It's going to be the best thing ever. And then here's Sonic, and that's all you gave him. And honestly, the one good thing in there, said before, is the Miss Pac-Man, and you kind of like left that laying there. And maybe you did that because everybody's fed up of Pac-Man, but that was good. Like that's a big hit. You should, out of the two things you announced, that's the one that's more attractive in this space, I think. But anyway, appreciate everybody being here. I could ramble on, do the Midwest goodbye for another hour and a half. I'm not going to do that. I am super tired, and appreciate that, Fourth Horseman. I appreciate everybody for being here again. Thursday nights, I know there's a lot going on. Really appreciate it. And this was just a rant I had to get off my chest, really kind of reflecting on the actions of the past week, and then seeing the stuff from Xbox happening. And it was just kind of like, hey, I just want to talk about this, and like it or hate it, I don't care. I had fun doing it. And so I entertained myself, if nothing else, for the last hour. So again, thanks for being here. Appreciate everybody. And until next time, have fun.